So, over the past couple of days, we've really gone over what has been the British view of the Brexit deal. And of course, it's been lots of jingoism, nationalistic celebrating, and beatings of chests, which ultimately, in the long run, when we get to scrutinise the full extent of the deal, as many people have been saying, that this deal is essentially just not as good as our European membership actually was. So we have negotiated ourselves into a worse spot, and that the ideas of Boris Johnson of wanting to somehow create a better deal for us somehow just did not play out, and we are going to see this play out over many years to come. So do not think that the Brexit debate is far from over and done. It is no way there. Johnson himself, in a recent article in The Telegraph, essentially described this as cakeism, as somehow this deal, people who want to be part of Europe are going to like it, and then the people who are the Brexiteers are also somehow, quote, going to like it. I can tell you now, especially from being one of those sides, I can tell you none of them actually like it. In fact, a lot of us are basically saying that this deal just leads us back on the road to Europe, which is what a lot of us have been saying for so long. No matter what deal Johnson gets, our pathway back to Europe will be laid before us very clearly and succinctly. So, let's get into this, because this is the response from, like I say, the Europeans. What have they thought to this deal? What do they think to it? And, to be honest, not surprising what you're going to be hearing. So, like I say, before we do get into it, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And thank you very much to the people that do support me that way. And on with the article. So, this comes again from The Guardian. And title is Splendid Isolation or Just a Bit Part Player? Europe reacts to the, quote, British victory. The question about how the full details of the Brexit deal would be received, and warnings of the negotiations that continue after its implementation, tempered widespread relief in Europe, and that the last-ditch agreement had been reached. Many commentators also wondered how Britain would negotiate the reality of life outside the European Union after years of unsettled agreement, even within the pro-Brexit camp, about the country's strategic direction. Le Monde said the country was now facing a dilemma of over half a century ago. The United Kingdom finds itself once again facing a question that was never resolved after 1945, its place in the world, wrote Philip Bernand. It's like Back to the Future from the 1950s. While Germany and France launched themselves into building Europe, the British refused to join this project, too limiting for their ambitions, and initiated by two countries they considered, unlike themselves, losers of the war. On the day after Christmas, officials in Brussels and the capital of the EU states began scrutinising more than 1,000 pages which made up the deal, as did peoples whose livelihoods may be on the line. The only certainty today is that we need to find, during the transition period, more deals within the deal, said Frédéric Collier, mayor of the northern French city of Bruges-sur-Marne, which has a large fishing industry. The agreement left much obscured, he warned. Relief for our fishermen, but also what will be the impact on stocks, who, for example, will be handling the controls, and over what time, he told Europe 1 Radio. Despite challenges from him and others unhappy with the agreement, it is widely expected that the deal would be provisionally applied at the end of the year by the EU in order to avoid a no-deal outcome, with MEPs voting on it later in January. The House of Commons will be recalled to hold a vote on the new treaty on the 30th of December. But Britain and Europe should expect years of continued wrangling over trade, warned Björn Zunk in Germany's Sunday, I think that's how you say it. So, those who think the Brexit dilemma comes to an end with this deal will be bitterly disappointed, he wrote. In the coming years and decades, there will be plenty of reasons to call on the arbitration bodies envisioned in a deal. Likely, under the threat of tariffs, likely under the threat of tariffs. So the drama will carry on, sadly. The Trumpism that marked Boris Johnson's presentation of the deal at home was largely absent in Europe, perhaps because many felt that Britain had not emerged with a clear victor as its leader had claimed. But that may be one of the few opinions they share with the hardline Brexiteers in Britain, who are now poring over the deal to decide if they will actually back it. French European Minister Clement Brun said that it was a good agreement and stressed that the EU had not accepted a deal at all cost. Irish PM Michel Martin welcomed it, representing the least bad possible version of Brexit. And unbound by diplomatic necessities, France's Liberation newspaper was far more blunt, describing the agreement as offering only a facade of commercial freedom for the UK, while committing London to maintaining standards on the environment, workers' rights and climate change. From Spain to Germany, there was praise for the role of European unity played out in achieving in what the Scheiden Süd, I can't how you say it, that German newspaper, also considered a relatively advantageous deal. It averts tariffs for goods on trade, which is explicitly important for the EU, since its states export a lot more to the Great Britain than they import. The United Kingdom, meanwhile, has a trade surplus in services, but here the deal barely lessens the complications that will come with the end of the EU membership. For Spain's El País, there was a particular historic significance in how Germany and France shrugged off last-minute attempts by British to fracture their solidarity, including refusing Johnson's request for individual phone calls with Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel at a critical moment in the negotiations. The bells are tolling for the divide and conquer tactics London used for the centuries to block the emergence of a dominant European power, the paper said. De Spiegel's Marcus Brucker suggested that the realities of Brexit would deal a heavy blow to the British exceptionalism that helped drive the departure from the EU. Many politicians and citizens in Great Britain do not perceive themselves to be Europeans among many other Europeans, he said. And Great Britain does not think of itself as one European country among many, but a very special one, or even a chosen one. But of course, not all Brits think like that. But sadly, they are not the ones currently in charge. That is why their country's departure from the EU is not an unreasonable development. The EU will be freer to take the steps it needs to take in order to assert itself against the USA and China, because it is running out of time to do so. Great Britain, on the other hand, might need Brexit to realise how small a bit part it will play on the world stage it will really be. Some on the continent expressed hope that with Brexit complete, the ideological imperatives for anti-European sentiment would dissipate, and a rebuilding of close ties could actually now commence. Josie Inglanglo Tamberia, a senior fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations, argued that Brexit marks not only Britain's lowest ebb, but also the most damaging and irreversible outcome of the waves of populist sentiment that swept through many Western democracies in 2016. Writing in El Mundo, he painted a picture of an out-of-touch Britain obsessed by past glories, while the rest of the world got to grips with 5G and artificial intelligence. While the US is shaking off Trump's 2016 win, their resort to restore their role, influence and image to the rest of the world, Britain is consumed by an eccentric plan of the conservative elite to return of exerting global influence from a position of splendid isolation. And that really does sum it up. That really is essentially the view of what's happening. There really is, and we've said it before, there really is a sense by essentially the conservative elite that's essentially running this country that they really can somehow exert this massive influence over control that they really don't have anymore. We've talked about this before, about them wanting to bring back the British Empire, and in many words, without actually saying it, that is really what they are saying, and it's really, really troubling. because Britain just isn't that country anymore, and for Britain to find its place in the 21st century will once again end up rejoining the European Union. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a fact, and history will indeed prove me right one day on that. So, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to hit that like and share button on your way out, and of course down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.